All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
We are with you, and we greet you with the greatest warmth. And speaking of warmth, we are broiling on the West Coast. Our show is live 11 to 1 Pacific, 2 to 4 on the East Coast. What up, East Coasters? What up, what up, what up? 1 to 3 in the Central Time Zone. What up, Central Time Zone? We love you all if you join us live or you listen, which is really the way most people take in the show on delay, you know, whenever it's convenient for you. So the
audience can't hear. The audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
Yes, right. Your mics are cut. I'll be with you in a moment. You would just everybody just relax. Everything's going to be fine today. We've got a great Friday.
Baby girl, don't even play.
I've got a visit from Courtney in just a moment. My other half will give you the lowdown on a Courtney sighting. Yeah, we're coming to San Francisco. We love our San Francisco.
What?
I kind of consider it home in a weird way. And we have other news that we can even cross-pollinate or cross paths with many of you. If you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, we'll give you our schedule, and maybe we can, bump into you at the fall show, which is really why we're there. Oh, in fact, Albert has dutifully put up the website, sffallshow.org, and you go in, you can get tickets. It's just a 3-day event. I think, let me just bring Courtney in right now, and then I'll get you to what we're doing on the show today. We got it's Courtney, everybody. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you. Yeah. Courtney.
Hi. I can't hear anything.
You can't? Okay. Is that better?
That's too loud.
Okay. I don't know. When you say no, I can't hear anything, it means I got to turn it way up. And then when I turn it way up, okay.
That's perfect.
All right. Very good.
Hi, Kim. Hi, Albert. Hi.
Don't worry about Kim and Albert. Speak to the audience.
Just ignore that guy in the jacket. It's fine.
Oh, my God. I don't understand this.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
Exactly. They come on. They say, oh, yes, and I'll mention the fall show. And then they come on and they go, hi, Kim. Hi, Albert. How are you doing?
Oh, my God.
You can say hi, Kim, and hi, Albert on our own time, Courtney.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Please, sweetheart, tell everyone about this great, I think it's a great trip we're going to have.
I know it's going to be fantastic. So we are headed up to San Francisco. The fall show starts October 17th and runs through the 20th. So that's a Thursday through Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It's 10:30 to 7 Thursday through Saturday, and 11 to 5 on Sunday.
It's like $20, a little over $20.
So
but
you
not
get
expensive.
25% off your tickets through Eventbrite with the code MARK.
Oh, okay. So you can see tickets at eventbrite.com.
Mm-hmm.
Bright is spelled B-R-I-T-E. Eventbrite.com.
All capital letters, MARK.
MARK is the discount code, all in caps.
Discount code, 25% off tickets. There are lectures and book signings every day. I'm looking at the lectures. They're amazing. One of my favorite designers is Mark D. Sykes. He's speaking on Sunday. And you can have the lecturers or the panelists in some of these lectures sign books. Any of the books that they've written will be available. You can have them sign. There's 3 lectures, I believe, every day. And they're fantastic. They're English design, French design, home and garden, classic Americana. It's really, really great. I am trying to book as many as I can.
You have an artistic eye, Courtney. You have sort of that thing that you like. So
well, thank you, Mark. Finally, some recognition.
What about the rest of us who just like to watch Niners games and kind of just
10 hours a day doing? Well,
I mean, is there stuff for me?
Yes, of course.
Because I appreciate.
I mean, this is if you are looking to support arts and fine arts in San Francisco, this show has been an important cornerstone of that for 42 years. So this is the 42nd year of the fall show. and you can go and support them. There's
Jay Abrams
art.
says, "Oh, I can wear my fancy new Crocs."
Oh,
Look at you, Jay Abrams.
Yeah, that'll really go well with some of these gorgeous bespoke jewelry designers.
Go to the garden lecture. That's where you wear your Crocs. Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's home decor, there's jewelry, there's antiques, designers, art dealers, art gallerists. I mean, it really is a fantastic show. There's many exhibitors who fly in from all over the world for this event. As I mentioned last week, the Robb Report has noted that this is one of the most important events of this kind.
Albert, are you familiar with the Robb Report? You know what the Robb Report is, Albert? Wait, don't answer. Hold on a second. I need a prediction. Kim, do you think Albert will know what the Robb Report is?
He will know.
They used to send it to me, and I don't know why.
Of course they did.
So maybe they send it to him too.
Would you think he will know it?
There's a possibility that he's seen it. I'm going to say it may have been floating around the KGO newsroom at one point. I'm going to say yes.
Okay. It's not that he has seen it or is aware of its existence. He has to be able to tell us what it is. Kim,
then no.
Okay, then that's a no from Kim. What do you think?
Actually, I think he will.
I actually think Albert will be able to.
Definitely.
So, Albert, Kim doesn't have the faith in you that Courtney and I have.
I had the faith in you until you knocked it out of me.
Albert, I ask you to tell me what the Robb Report is.
Is that we do have a segment called That's Rich on the show, and I do use a certain website to find all of our stories.
Nice.
Yes,
I'm
he's
so
familiar.
sorry
He
I
knows.
doubted
He
you.
knows. Yeah.
Albert.
Well,
Just a sweetheart.
So there's high end, but
end, but it's accessible.
Right.
Everyone can enjoy visiting these exhibitors from all over the world.
Will Albert know it?
Remember that segment on the show? We used to do that segment all the time.
I enjoyed that.
Go ahead, Courtney.
The chairs of this year's event are Aaron Lauder and Wes Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
Wes Gordon is the creative designer for a brand, Carolina Herrera.
Okay. Now I'm learning too much about the entire thing.
I'm very excited. I can't wait. We will be there Thursday and Friday. So
we will.
Please come join us. I hope to see Kim and Albert. It'll be a lot of fun. Very excited about this year's event.
Yeah, it would be great. But we will definitely be
so
there.
wonderful that they've
you and I
invited
will
us.
be there.
Yes.
So again, jump on. Tickets are at Eventbrite, BRITE, Eventbrite.
I'll be there with Matt Murphy from earlier this week.
The discount code, use it, is MARK, but all capital letters. Mark is the discount code, MARK. Again, eventbrite.com, BRITE is the way they spell bright there. We had, Murphy was very handsome, smart, and versed in the stuff that you like, which is true crime.
Yeah.
For days afterward, Courtney, people were talking about how you should end up with him. So.
Oh, wow.
I don't think I could stand in the way of that. Seems like a holy union, so I would not even, Courtney, I'd love to speak to you all morning, but it feels as though I already have. So I would like to say thank you.
This is why I could never leave this romantic relationship.
All right, Courtney, everybody. We'll see you on Monday.
What he's got going here is a situation.
Does feel situation-ish, I have to say. So, all right. Let's get this show started.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
There is a lot going on. Whoa, look at this. Right out of the chute, Enid Fox, $49.99. She throws it into the big super chat world. She is celebrating today, and she is enjoying her celebration with us and donating as part of the celebration. For those listening, let me just tell you, Enid Fox, who, as I say, just contributed $49.99, $50 to the show. But 49 is a significant number because it is her 49th anniversary today. I mean, that is extraordinary.
What?
I know. That means she's been married for 49 years. Dwight and Enid.
And they're the cutest couple.
What can one say but congratulations to you both for fording the stream of romance and making it to the other side without getting swept down into the world of divorce and separation and anger and accusations and recriminations. And
lift it up, Mark. Lift it up.
I just know that it's a whitewater ride, is what I'm trying to say. And Enid Fox, along with her husband Dwight, they have made that whitewater ride, and they have made it. And I applaud them and congratulate them, and of course, thank them for $49.99. Wow, really, really cool.
Happy anniversary, you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm choking up, but
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
I'm gonna cry, but I mean, it is cry-worthy. Really cool, Enid. Super cool, and I love that you're a part of our show. So, all right, quickly, I wanted to tell you what's on the show today. Of course, Michael Shure will be here hour 2, and you again see that event will be in San Francisco. A lot of our audience is in the Bay Area, so we like to kind of fire a flare whenever we're going to be in the Bay Area for any length of time anyway. And so the fall show is our next big chance. You guys will be in town when we have our meeting in Los Gatos. Oh, Heather says, oh, is that right? There's a meetup
the
there.
Mark Thompson Show community has planned a gathering at the Testarossa Winery in Los Gatos that same time frame when you'll be driving through.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a...
We'll have to stop by and see the folks in Los Gatos.
I'd like to, if there's time. Of course, let me know where it is, and I'll certainly try to get there. Of course, it's always a bit of a slam to schedule, but I would love to do it. So anyway, it's an exciting time. We have a month before the election. There are already over 1 million votes that have been cast in the election so far in states that have already begun voting. And so it is with great anticipation that we talked to Michael Shure about it. And it's been an eventful week. You may be aware of the fact that he came on especially for comments associated with the Walz-Vance debate, and he was very good and I thought insightful, and putting it in a perspective that we could, I think, appreciate and be somewhat familiar with, because he essentially has said all along that vice presidential debates really don't matter, and unless there's a major screw-up, most of the time it just doesn't get factored into someone's decision-making as to who they'll vote for. You can already see the results of the debate, if you want to think of it that way, or the talking points around the debate beginning to recede, okay, just days later. That said, now it's about, in this final push, the very important work of getting people motivated to vote. And in that spirit, there are different strategies that are being applied. One of those strategies is associated with endorsements, right? And so you have high-profile people who are now coming forward and endorsing. You saw the Taylor Swift endorsement, but I thought...
Did you see that? Did you see Eminem?
Yes, I did. That's right. Thank you for mentioning it. We haven't mentioned it on the air.
Eminem came out, I think it was the night of the vice presidential debate, and said, Kamala Harris is the one for him.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. We had it in the show and we just didn't get to it. But yeah, Eminem. I mean, look, I see a lot of these endorsements. I'm not sure to what extent they really make a difference, but I know that they don't hurt particularly in general. And if endorsements meant nothing, then major corporations and major businesses wouldn't look for celebrities to endorse their product. Okay, so you can tell me, oh, endorsements don't mean anything. Yeah, tell that to all the brands that are desperate for major celebrities to endorse their product. Watch sports. Kevin Hart, Charles Barkley, I'm trying to think of all the people, Albert, who show up, Danny DeVito, George Clooney. These are people who are in all these commercials I keep seeing. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, all the other football players, during football, they'll run away. If you're watching golf, they have golfers on the commercials. They have them because people pay attention to what they have to say. So endorsements do matter. Got my Florida ballot in the mail today, says Wes. Got to keep it safe from Florida, man. He's all over Polk County. Florida man is all over Polk County.
There's a vote that matters. I mean, all of our votes matter, but Wes is especially. He's in that swing state.
Well, there is.
Now Florida's at play, right?
Yes, thank you. I was just about to say. I mean, you can argue Florida's in play because it is much closer than it's been in a long time. I am reminded that Florida is a very tough place for Democrats to win. I think there has been the more than the standard issue share of voter disenfranchisement and other ways in which to work the election so that you game the system. And I think that has been done on the GOP side. I don't know that you can break that Florida nut, but it's possible. So if it can get cracked, it would be great. Florida does seem to be a bit in play. Now, I was going to mention that Bruce Springsteen, to whatever extent Bruce Springsteen, you'll have to tell me whether Bruce Springsteen has a hold on part of America. I mean, Bruce Springsteen is insanely popular. I think still he's had staying power through the decades. Albert, play a little bit of the Springsteen endorsement, if you would. I don't think we can watch the whole thing. We'll watch maybe the beginning and the end. Here's Bruce Springsteen.
Hi, I'm Bruce Springsteen. Friends, fans, and the press have asked me who I'm supporting in this most important of elections. And with full knowledge that my opinions no more or less important than those of any of my fellow citizens, here's my answer. I'm supporting Kamala Harris for president and Tim Walz for vice president, and opposing Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Here's why. We are shortly coming upon one of the most consequential elections in our nation's history. Perhaps not since the Civil War has this great country felt as politically, spiritually, and emotionally divided as it does then at this moment. It doesn't have to be this way. The common values, the shared stories that make us a great and united nation are waiting to be rediscovered and retold once again. Now that will take time, hard work, intelligence, faith, and women and men with the national good guiding their hearts. America is the most powerful nation on earth, not just because of her overwhelming military strength or economic power, but because of what she stands for, what she means, what she believes in: freedom, social justice, equal opportunity, the right to be in love.
I got it. I like that he calls America she, because I can't wait till she loses her reproductive freedoms, America, because of the
What?
I'm just saying, it's if America's a woman, she's in a bad country.
Yeah, she already lost. She already lost something. So
exactly right. Look again. Maybe it means nothing to you, but I think it is significant maybe for others. It's maybe something that wouldn't even sway votes, but it may bolster your already made decision about voting. I see Randy says, I think the only celebrity endorsement that's going to make any difference is that from Taylor Swift. Okay. Man, he looks and sounds old, says Trevor. Wow. What? It's a rough room, man. How old is Bruce Springsteen? Anybody want to guess at that? That's a good question on this Friday. No Googling. Tell me how old Bruce Springsteen is. All of you guys who think, oh, he looks so old.
Is he 68?
68. You see a 70. Go ahead, call it out, because I'm going to look online to see. I've got to.
So we have. What do we have? 67 from Becky, and Cafe Venus says 70. So how about the guesses are hovering in the late 60s, early 70s?
That's
range.
exactly what I would have guessed. I would have guessed a 70, maybe. I would have, maybe
Oakland
71.
Says 72. 63 from Joe. Yeah.
63, 75, says Robert Brown. The actual retail price, Bruce Springsteen's age, 75 is right.
Oh,
that was it was guessed in there. In that.
Dan's got it. Good morning, Dan.
Yeah, Dan had it, and I think there were a couple of others maybe who had it, or one other certainly. Marshall Fish had it, and Dillette had it.
Nice.
And hell, I'm 68 and he looks older than me, says Nullification. Where's that?
He's very well spoken, though.
Yeah, I'm 68 and he looks older than me. Well, he is older than you. Why is that bad? He's 7 years older than you, so he should look. I mean, he looks.
Never been anything like this.
I think he looks great. You guys are really rough. Man, I can't imagine what they're saying in the chat room about me. Oh, my God. But anyway, Springsteen makes that endorsement, and to what extent you think it's important, I think is interesting. It's interesting for me to see that many of you think it won't matter. But Springsteen was hilarious on Curb Your Enthusiasm. But he really was. Actually, not only was he hilarious, but Bruce Springsteen, he might have been the best actor on that stage, in those scenes. I thought he was brilliant as an actor. Who knew? But, yeah. Anyway, the endorsement that might matter in political circles has nothing to do with Bruce Springsteen. Mark Thompson looks 75 as well. Ha ha. How dare you? That is outrageous. I mean,
It was great. I loved it.
I know, but I don't appreciate it. And
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
I do. I count on giving myself, and still they're all over me. Absolutely outrageous.
And I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week.
All right, let's just do a, he's just kidding, Randy is. I know. I think, when I kind of lose it a little bit at people, I don't know, not so much who he is, but how he said it, says Karen. Oh, I think that's true. His endorsement was very well spoken and very well thought. So yeah. I think it's I think, Mark, that toupee looks awesome. Thank you, Michael. It's, but I do think that what he said is important. He talked about the values of the country, and these things are at play. I don't know to what extent they cut through. I do have a thought about a controversial endorsement, or it's an endorsement that has certainly been followed by some controversy. And to be fair, even I have added to that controversy. I'm not a fan of the Cheneys. Dick Cheney, I think, is otherworldly awful. Liz Cheney is otherworldly awful adjacent. We don't enjoy the same political views, which is fine. I mean, people can disagree on politics. I, as you know, have pointed out that I think she would be fine with the Supreme Court the way it is. So there's a lot of the, if you will, devil's work that was done by the last Trump administration that I think Liz Cheney might be okay with. That said, and she was a leading GOP luminary. I mean, she's talked about as being top of ticket. I mean, eligible to be top of ticket and maybe even have a presidential run in her future. Now that political future is over with the GOP. And she doesn't fit into the Democratic Party for the reasons I've said. She's talked about as someone who might be included in a Kamala Harris administration because Harris has said she might have Republicans on her cabinet and part of her administration.
I have a guess that she's going to be our next Secretary of State. That's what I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. It's possible, and it wouldn't be the first time you have someone from an opposing party in that Secretary of State role. So, yeah, I'll get to Melania in a moment. Thank you, Grady. I'll get to that. But what I wanted to show you was Liz Cheney. But let me just say one last thing before I show it to you. And the last thing is that even though I feel as I do, which is that Liz Cheney is an extremely problematic figure from a philosophical, political standpoint, her endorsement is important. And here's why. Because I think her endorsement gives permission to a lot of heavy GOPers and old school GOPers to vote Harris Walz. I think there oftentimes needs to be hey, they're doing it, And those guys are serious GOP. They are a lot like I am. Conservative, small government, whatever you want to call it. I mean, again, these are brands. The GOP has that brand. It's not necessarily true. You know, it's like saying, you know, Diet Coke is good for you. Well, it's diet, but as it turns out, you know, diet sodas have problems. But they'll live on with the reputation that maybe they're good for you in some way. I think that's a tortured analogy, but you get what I'm saying. And so you need an excuse that person who's a mainstreamer from that party and a high profile in all the ways I've said, Liz Cheney, she is voting for Harris Walls, and not only voting for them, she is actually out there campaigning for them. That gives you permission, again, if you're in the red camp, the GOP camp, to pull the lever for the blue, for the Democrats. Show a little bit, if you would, please, Albert. Do you have it, the Cheney thing, after all of that? After that setup, do you have it?
I have the county clerk. I don't have the Cheney thing. I need to go get that.
I didn't send it to you?
No.
After all that
Cheney
setup.
and the Charlemagne.
After all that setup, man, really? You don't know?
I think I have it in there. Yeah.
I told Kim, I said, I've got it. I've already got it in there. Mm-hmm. Of course, I didn't send it. But no, but I really like, all right, God. Really, Albert? You don't have it? You do this to me all the time?
You know, they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
I don't know what the hell you do it for.
I have it. Here, I'll pull it up.
Yeah, you do. Of course you do.
I was so struck, though, by how both women spoke yesterday at this rally, talking about the Constitution, putting the country over party, and what they had to say made me feel like there's still real patriotism around.
Take a look at her comments from the stump yesterday in Wisconsin.
Donald Trump was willing to sacrifice our capital to allow law enforcement officers to be beaten and brutalized in his name, and to violate the law and the Constitution in order to seize power for himself. I don't care if you are a Democrat or a Republican or an independent. That is depravity, and we must never become numb to it. Any person who would do these things can never be trusted with power again. We must defeat Donald Trump on November 5th. In that election 20 years ago, when we were campaigning in Wisconsin and all across the country, we were campaigning as compassionate conservatives. What January 6th shows us is that there is not an ounce of compassion in Donald Trump. He is petty, he is vindictive, and he is cruel. And Donald Trump is not fit to lead this good and great nation.
Wow. Those are strong words, and those are appropriate words, and that explains sort of why she's there on the stump with
Kamala Harris.
With Kamala Harris, and
they admitted, we disagree on many things, but what we can agree on is that the Constitution is important enough that we need to uphold it, and that we need to get together and put it first. Yes,
now,
100%
not woke,
yes.
Not woke says, if anything, the Cheneys hurt Kamala. And I'll tell you, not woke, I really had that view. And when she first came out with the endorsement, and certainly when Dick Cheney came out with the endorsement, I said, I don't want Dick Cheney anywhere near Kamala Harris. If you want Kamala, Dick Cheney is not only a problematic figure, he is a Darth Vader-like figure in American history. He's responsible for the war in Iraq. He is responsible for the profiteering that went out. And by the way, there are others who were profiteering in the war in Iraq. Is it the Smedley Butler book, War for Profit? Or someone will correct me on the title. But anyway, the idea that wars are fought over territory and philosophical differences, it's part that, and then it's two parts money-making. And you have big interests that are associated with war. I mean, oftentimes, look, I don't mean to say that no war is righteous. Certainly, the war against fascism and despotism through Europe in World War II. I mean, you can go on. I mean, it doesn't even have to be that high profile of confrontation. But I do mean to say that Iraq was a for-profit enterprise populated by privateering of all sorts of the military. So privateering and profiteering went together as the Arab princes of the world moved in with the mercenary armies, and Cheney, with Halliburton and his connections to Halliburton, essentially enabled the entire war. And they soaked the American taxpayer for money. They destroyed a country that was, you could salvage something in Iraq by pursuing other ways to go after Saddam Hussein. But there was no righteousness associated with the war in Iraq, and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of civilians killed, and I'd suggest a destabilizing war was pursued for way longer than it had to be. And of course, it didn't have to begin at all. But anyway, so that's my, sorry, I was just trying to say, ding dong, the witch is dead, Dick Cheney, and all of a sudden Dick Cheney comes back and goes, and I endorse Kamala Harris. Hey, warmonger, why don't you go back and, make sure your heart monitor is working. I just don't think you need. Now, Liz Cheney is different. She's, in my view, not as problematic a figure as Dick Cheney, although her problems are associated with those things that I mentioned, and I'm not going to go mention them again. But again, her positive elements may outweigh those negatives for many and enable others to say, she's doing it, you know what, I'm going to vote for Harris also. In other words, give permission in a way for those GOPers to head to the polls and do it. I wanted to, go ahead, Kim.
Maybe not woke means, though, in a different way, that it's not helpful because Liz Cheney was voted out in her own district. So perhaps Republicans that are, on the Trump bandwagon don't see her as being an influential figure anymore because she couldn't hold on to her seat.
There is absolutely no question that the people on the Trump bandwagon aren't going to vote. Aren't going to be influenced by her. I'm not talking about those people. There are plenty of people, it would seem, who are not in that world. They're in the world of, I'm a Republican, but I'm not a Trumper. Those people might spark to her. But she didn't carry Wisconsin because of the Trump jihadism. This country became drunk on Trump as far as the right was concerned, and they primaried her hard, and that was revenge for having taken on the former president. Liz was on the January 6th committee, though, so knows what she's talking about exactly. She's spoken of that at length. You know what I need to do, but I'm just so behind on books. I need to read her book. I'm told her book is really good. Mm-hmm. And so I do need to get to that. Now, let me just see. Melania. Okay, thank you. Can I get to Melania? Let me get to Melania now. And then I will get to then I'll get to our feature presentation, which is the sentencing of that corrupt MAGAite who got hard time for not only attempts to manipulate the vote, but again, it was the fox guarding the henhouse for turning over access to those MAGAites who wanted to get into the voting system. It's crazy. The very things that Democrats are accused of are the things that the GOP actually is doing. So Melania says Teacher Lori, outspokenly pro-choice, helps Trump with MAGA women, says Teacher Lori. Those MAGA women might differ with Trump on current anti-choice positions, hence a reasonable response to, quote, leaked excerpts in media. Intentional and calculated, Teacher Lori asks. And here's what I would say to that. I couldn't agree with you more. I think, Kim, you and I, you had said, Melania disagrees with her husband about the, and I thought she might disagree on it, but it's being put out strategically. Melania is not your friend. Melania is not an ally of the women. Melania is not an ally of Democrats, and Melania is not going up against her husband. Melania is on a pleasure cruise where she lives a gilded life that has been enabled by the kind of person she is to be a side piece for Donald Trump. She is a trophy wife, and she acts like it. She knows nothing about policy. She is a hard-line right-winger from the standpoint of her vision of everything from immigrants to those who are the victims of natural disasters. Read about it. Look at it. Look at what happened when the hurricane hit Puerto Rico. Look at Melania's inability to say anything through a 4-year term and her constant renegotiation of her deal with Trump. And that's what it is. Her prenup renegotiated. I believe that Melania Trump's words on women's reproductive freedoms are important from the standpoint that they get out there, but they are a Trojan horse in a way. They're getting in a way that can seize your heart and your sense that there might be some reason in a Trump administration, and it's for that reason that was, quote, leaked. I agree with Teacher Lori on this. I believe that it was a strategic move to drop that video.
Okay, so that's probably true, but I just go back to the fact that her husband is the one who's the reason that Roe v. Wade was abolished in America, that the national right for women to have control of their own bodies was taken away. So who cares what his wife thinks? She's not going to be the president. It doesn't make him look any softer. Just because, obviously, if he cared about what she thought, then he wouldn't have, dealt the death blow to reproductive rights in America.
I think that's true, but for some people, and I even think, to be fair for you, for an instant, it's like, look, Melania disagrees with her husband on this. It's like, maybe some sense is getting through. And when I thought it was something of a naked publicity play. Here you go. Melania is just trying to sell her book. Who said that? Yeah. The Trick era said Melania is just trying to sell her book, and it was all done at the same time as her book, right?
Her book. Yeah.
Her book. Yeah, thank you. Very much. Sorry, I missed that the first time. Yeah. But S. Blumenstein says, I thought it was Melania giving Trump the shiv. Yeah, I just didn't see it that way. I really didn't.
Does anybody really care? When you think of Melania, I just picture her. My vision of her right now at this very moment is she's sitting in some golden room. She's sitting in the golden dining room, having a massage or something. She's not someone who anyone cares about what she thinks about policy, is she? She seems kind of vacuous. I'll take a ding for vacuous.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. All right.
Thank you.
The shadow producer, Calvin Wong, I think he just had a notable passing, by the way. Calvin Wong, our heart breaks for you and wishes you peace, and our sympathies are with you. Anyway, Calvin says, Mark and Kim, why are you yelling? Trump said that you both agreed with adopt decision everyone celebrated. Remember, everyone agreed, even though the decision was 6-3 on the Supreme Court. Help me, Kim. Can you help me with that? I don't know why I read these.
It's possible that he means everyone. Trump said everyone agrees. All of America agrees.
I see. Oh, you're being sarcastic. Calvin's
yeah, I think it's sarcasm.
I'm so sorry, Cal. Yeah. Thank you. I cold read these comments, and sometimes if you're not clear, right. I can't see sarcasm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He'll tell you, Trump will. Everybody wanted that.
Yeah. No.
Anyway.
No, I didn't want that.
Yeah.
Not me.
She's probably trying some outfit on right now, says Anthony. All right. Good stuff. I have other stuff to do, like the main event, which is
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let me tell you what has happened. There has finally been, and I think over the course of now many months and even years, there has been a price to pay for the BS associated with the big lie, election stolen, all of that. And we know now. We know it because of all the depositions and all the testimony associated with Donald Trump and what was going on at the White House. We know that Donald Trump didn't believe that he won the election. He knew he lost, but he was pursuing an effort to overthrow the legitimate win that Joe Biden had over him. So others were enlisted to do that. Bannon, Giuliani, the MyPillow guy. I mean, it's crazy, but Lindell was among them. So in that world, as the tentacles of influence were spread out across the states, it was critical to enlist people who were associated with the election in all those states, since the way we elect a president is through the states. And so it was that they enlisted a MAGA devotee, and they got someone to actually do their dirty work. Now that person, a county clerk, has been sentenced to 9 years. That is a long time to be in prison. She is unapologetic. Here she is, and here the judge is at sentencing.
Reputation at this point is poor because of what you've done here and after. Your lies are well documented, and these convictions are serious. I'm convinced you would do it all over again if you could. You're as
She's the Colorado County Clerk, by the way.
Has ever seen. You don't have those histories of drug and alcohol abuse. There's no lifetime of trauma, not even close to the type of mitigating circumstances I would see from many folks who sit in that chair. No, to the contrary, Ms. Peters, you are a privileged person. You are as privileged as they come. There are many things in my mind that are crystal clear about this case. You are no hero. You abused your position, and you're a charlatan who used and is still using your prior position in office to peddle a snake oil that's been proven to be junk time and time again. In your world, it's all about you. You abdicated your position as a servant to the Constitution, and you chose you over all else. Yes, you are a charlatan, and you cannot help but lie as easy it is for you to breathe. You betrayed your oath for no one other than you.
All right, let's bring in Colorado Attorney.
I don't know. The last thing he said, I don't know. You betrayed your oath not for no one else but you. You betrayed your oath for no one else but Donald Trump. I mean, you were in the thrall of Donald Trump. She, I believe, was in touch with Steve Bannon, and Randy's not wrong about this. The MAGA crowd will just say this is another example of a biased judicial system because the judge was appointed by the Democratic governor. Look, the right is never going to say, yeah, well, I'm glad, justice was done there, but most of us are honest. They'll never say that. They're going to fight you on every last indictment and every last sentencing. But it is still a sign that you can't just get away with this stuff. And I think that that's important because it may have a chilling effect on things like another January 6th. As long as people actually do time for what they've done, you feel as though they might think twice before they do any number of things that creates the chaos around the election that the GOP will use in court to try to create doubt as to the outcome. They're already doing it now, okay? This is not just a hypothetical. They're already in courts now, challenging systems, getting last-minute changes to election systems. It is something that is part of the strategy, and there are far more in the way of assets being applied to that plan now than were being applied in 2016. In 2016, as we've said, you didn't have people like this. You didn't have county clerks who were on your side necessarily ahead of time. It was a scramble. They didn't think they were even going to win in 2016. But in 2020, they were desperate to retain power, And they reached out and got people like this former Colorado official. So she became part of their election scheme. It was a coup attempt, and they tried it through legal means, that is to say, to challenge the outcome in court, even though there was no evidence of any election interference of any kind. And then they went for what this GOP official was part of. They went to mess with the actual election systems. And, yeah, go ahead, Kim.
She was the former Mesa County clerk and recorder. It was her job to safeguard the votes of the people in her district. And what did she do? She did some sneaky things with what do you call it? The things her badge, allowing people to badge in.
Yeah, like her prox card or the car key, key card.
Her key card, thank you. And she allowed someone associated with My Pillow guy, Mike Lindell, to get into an area that housed the voting machines and basically mess around with voting machines. And she's a darling of the MAGA movement, and they are singing her praises. Meanwhile, she killed the voice of the American people. One voice, one vote. How un-American. She's a cheater and she's a liar. And you say hard time. She only got 9 years. I don't think so. I think they should send her to another country. She's un-American. Gone.
Wow.
Take away her citizenship. She goes.
Sayonara,
Good day, sir.
Yeah.
There's nothing more un-American.
Sayonara, sucker.
Oh, wow.
Nothing more un-American than cheating on an election and trying to thwart the will and the voice of the American voter. She's despicable. She's despicable.
Get nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. I don't know. I think 9 years is a long time. I don't know how many of you are familiar with
she needs to be voted off the island. Voter off the island. She's gone.
Wow. That's a very Kim's tough, as you know, you guys. I mean, Kim is very she turns on you. Kim can really, really and in this case, I mean, I think you could certainly I don't know. I mean, you could view this as a treasonous act.
I do.
And yeah, exactly. But I will, my darling father, who, is no longer with us, but he was a constitutional lawyer, and I used to go after him during the Trump administration, and we used to go round and round about, this is a treasonous act, and how can he do that? He goes, treason is a very difficult thing to actually prove. And he said, and I said, well, how about the high crimes and misdemeanors? Don't you think? He said, well, even high crimes and misdemeanors, what does it mean? You see all the wiggle room for actual prosecution of treason and high crimes and misdemeanors in the case of Trump. So then back to the Colorado GOP official. Look, she got 9 years. Kim, that's a long time. You might be right. Maybe her passport should be taken away or citizenship stripped, and you should drop her in the middle of Peru. I don't know what should happen.
That's perfect. This would please me. Yes.
There's never been anything like this.
My apologies to Peru, but welcome to your new citizen. Don't leave her in charge of the votes.
Well, she is going to be doing time. And she was part of the scheme to steal the election in 2020. And again, there is a more sophisticated scheme being hatched now. There was a scramble in 2020. The scramble is already done, and now there will be a more organized attempt this time round. So that's the way we see it. And I think it's significant that some of these sentences are indeed on the tougher side, because I'm hoping it'll have a chilling effect on those who have plans to really make life rough around the next election. And we'll see. And so,
The Mark Thompson Show.
I liked this comment of all that I saw. Now it's gone. I try to catch him when I can, but it's hard. Now here it is. Lanzetta says he's got almost 1,000 people watching, but who the F is Mark Thompson? Wow.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
I'm with you. Who is he? That's crazy. Yeah. There it is. It's crazy. Rick Smith.
Jason says, yeah, let's deport her. Who else is ringing the deportation bell? The difference is they want to deport immigrants. I want to deport the crappiest of the crappy Americans.
I see. You want to clean up.
I want to clean out the traitors and those that are un-American. There are probably immigrants who value the Constitution more than this lady. Get her out.
Yeah. Can't deport her. I don't think you. Yeah, you're right, Randy. I don't think you can deport her. But
it should be a law, though.
Yeah, Kim's asking for that to be changed, Randy.
Thank you.
The point of
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Exactly. I like Lonzetto is my favorite comment of the day today. The guy who said he's got almost 1,000 people watching. Who the hell is this guy?
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
I love it. All right.
For those of you who don't know, Mark Thompson is a media powerhouse. From radio to television to movies. He's been in almost every medium you can imagine.
Wow. I really I like it. Please, Kim, finish your thought.
Can you let him finish, sir?
Yeah. So we've talked about Liz Cheney. We've talked about the Colorado election official who's gotten it. They're taking away her phone. That's like the worst part. Like, I had to drop my iPhone off too. Oh, yep. Yeah, well, iPhones are not allowed in here. Yeah. So it's an adjustment. I know 9 years doesn't seem like a lot to you, Kim. It is.
No.
We covered the Springsteen endorsement video as well. So if you missed any of that, it's all in the last half hour. I ask you to smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
We are a crowd-supported show with NPR, PBS type model. So we have Patreon and PayPal supporters, and you can find links to both under this video and under all our videos. And, of course, at our website, themarkthompsonshow.com. And thank you, everybody who's hit us with super stickers, super chats, and who supports us on Patreon and PayPal. In fact, I got a Patreon supporter that I'll give a shout-out to, a new one, in just a moment. Wes says, Mark Thompson, Alan Sorkin, whoever you think he is, he becomes. It's true. I have that. I'm a shapeshifter that way. So, all right. I'd like to ask Albert if Springsteen's endorsement might attract voters who say Taylor who. Yeah, the older crowd who loves Springsteen. I'm guessing if you love Springsteen, you're probably already, but who knows? Paul says men in an Atlas Intel poll are giving Trump so much favoritism, it worries me a lot. It was more accurate in the elections in Brazil, Argentina, Portugal, etc. Yeah, I don't know. I think it is true. I mean, everything I've seen in demographic breakdown, men do tend toward a Trump vote. So Trump is ahead of Kamala Harris with men. But the degree to which he is ahead with men is way outpaced by the degree to which she is ahead with women. So it's more than a push. If women show up at the polls, it should produce far more votes on balance for Kamala Harris. That might be a way to look at it. I mean, just since you're worried, I can tell you that, and maybe you'll take a little refuge in that. There are many foxes in the henhouse this time around in this election cycle, says Vilma. Election is not safe from MAGA. Thank you for the super chat, Vilma, and I agree with you. So, again, all we can do is try to be as vigilant as possible. Nutritionist Liz says, here's to getting to 50,000 subscribers.
Woo-hoo!
Yeah, keep being you. Thank you. Yeah, we're on our way. I hope we get there. Really great.
Where are we right now?
I don't know, 47 or something, 46, 46,000, something like that. Albert knows. I don't really know. But I think it's something
Albert,
like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Grady Kincaid says, Mark is my democratic moral media supplier. He gives me all I need to know as I choose to not watch TV. Well, that's nice, Grady. What is our count, Albert?
46,677.
So we have a ways to go for 50, yeah. But it's really cool. Rhonda says, I found Mark on TYT, and when he got this show, I ran to it. Then got Kim. Awesome and fun. Rhonda.
Aloha.
Love that. Thank you. Well,
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Smash the like button. It costs you nothing, and we appreciate everybody being here. Let's
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let me ask Albert, now that I've made the show horribly late, we did want to get to the Colorado official who was just sentenced, and that kind of put us a little bit late. How do you want to handle Florida, sir? Because we do typically on Friday do a segment called Friday Fabulous Florida. But what can we do now, Albert? We can still get it in, can't we?
Yeah, quickly, because I'll just let you know when Michael Shure is here. It's a shorter Florida, so.
Okay.
The stories are shorter.
On Fridays, we just, as a matter of fun, you can tell it's a little bit of a looser show on Friday. We like to focus on a state that oftentimes serves up the weird, the demented, the uncomfortable, the grotesque. It's all there. This is Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
It was a chase in the rain near Daytona Beach, Florida, left deputies stunned. They said it might be the slowest chase in our history. The suspect moving so slowly that troopers were noting the speed in single digits.
There's never been anything like this.
They said this has got to be one of the slowest pursuits I've seen in my career. The sheriff was making the point that the person they were pursuing was going 1, 2, or maybe 3 miles an hour, is what the sheriff said.
How is it not hard to block someone in if they're doing that?
Guys, why are you pursuing him? Why don't you just pull in front of him and that's the end?
Right. Yeah.
The incident run him down. Like,
you could. You could literally get out of the car and just run him down. Thank you. Deputies said that 33-year-old Kyle McNary kicked the victim out when they pulled over to swap places in the car. Then there he is. McNary allegedly hit another car and then drove off while leaving the victim, who he kicked out of the car, on the side of the road. We do a thing on this show where we would just quickly rate everybody's booking photo. It has to be a booking photo. There is Kyle. What do you give him?
He's not a bad-looking guy. His eyes are a little beady.
He's having a bad day, for sure. Yeah.
I'll give him a 6.5.
All right, 6.5. Getting around 7s on the chat. Deputies responding gave chase. They didn't have to go very fast to catch him. McNary refused to drive faster than 15 or 20 miles an hour. In a bizarre attempt to flee from police, McNary continued the low-speed chase, refusing to pull over or even, as deputies caught up to him, in any way acknowledge them. We do appreciate that he wasn't driving recklessly, said the deputies. And eventually, McNary did pull over and was arrested. He faces multiple charges, including fleeing from police and leaving the scene of a crash.
I'm bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Why, that's the safest police chase I've ever seen.
That's exactly it.
Plenty of time for people to get out of the way. That's a conscientious criminal right there.
It's hard to find places to get rest. I don't know about you, but I have trouble getting a full night's sleep. I oftentimes will pull over and just close my eyes for a little while. It's sometimes the only peace I get. And so in that spirit, we go to Fort Myers, Florida, where a Cape Coral man is arrested for sleeping on the roof of a Fort Myers Walmart, was the answer that you would, He was sleeping on a Walmart roof. Daniel Ray Rios, he's 30 years old. There he is in the Lee County Sheriff's Office, looking awake.
Yeah, very awake.
What would you, he's had a good rest there at the Walmart. What would you say for his booking photo?
He has the look of someone who's been awake a long time, hopped up on all kinds of drugs.
Oh, how dare you say that? I think he looks great. He looks fresh-faced and ready for his first job interview, I think.
Yeah. I think just in the spirit of this being a booking photo, I'm going to give it an 8.
I agree. I think he looks good. Yeah, everybody's giving him low scores. How dare you? Oh, Heather Kennedy gave him an 8. Okay, Teacher Lori with a 7.5.
Yeah, I mean,
he's got that. John Slade's got it right. He's giving him a 7. He says he's got that who me look. Who me?
Yeah, he looked like he was looking at the other side of the room. They called him over just to take the photo.
That's a great pull. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so it goes. Well, this is an insane story. We've been sitting on this one hour by hour, wanting to share it with you. A Florida doctor's medical license suspended because of an incredible turn of events. It was an emergency suspension of a doctor's medical license. Why would you, with urgency, suspend a medical license of a doctor of osteopathic medicine?
Is he killing people?
Well, pretty much, yes. He removed the wrong organ during surgery for William Bryan, and William Bryan died.
Oh, no.
It started on August 18th. Bryan was 70, went to the hospital complaining of stomach pain. Eventually, it was determined that he had an enlarged spleen. The doctor suggested that he be treated via surgery. Initially, Bryan refused the surgery. In fact, for 3 days, he said, I don't want to go under the knife. But the doctor scheduled it finally because he said the pain was just too great for him to deal with. And they scheduled a laparoscopic splenectomy. So they're taking the spleen out laparoscopically. Now, you can explain laparoscopic surgery, Albert, because you're the closest thing to a doctor that we have here.
Google it.
All right. Well, maybe you want to Google it and explain it. But anyway, it's supposed to be a less invasive method of surgery, isn't it, Albert?
That's correct. And Michael Shure is here. I just want to let you know.
Okay, thank you. I'll get to Michael Shure in just a moment. Maybe Michael is listening in, and he's probably jotting down a lot of these details because he loves this segment and only wishes that he could participate. But he can't because he's in the green room. All right, you want to bring Michael Shure in? Is that what you're saying? All right.
I do. I think that would be fun.
Oh, yeah. Thank God. Thank God.
Kim always wants to bring you in anywhere. She has a mad Michael crush on you.
Bring in Michael Shure.
Anyway, can I get back to this guy? He's in the OR, and they're going to do this laparoscopic splenectomy, take out his spleen. And the hospital staff was concerned because they had a skeleton crew around at that time. And the crew questioned the ability of the doctor to perform this procedure.
Yikes.
Once the surgery started, the doctor converted the laparoscopic procedure to an open surgery because of poor visibility in the operating room. The doctor, Shagnovsky, said that he saw the spleen in because it had ruptured, and that when he saw this aneurysm that spontaneously caused the rupture of the spleen, the patient, Bryan, his vitals plummeted, a code was called, and supposedly the doctor gained control, stabilized the patient, and removed the spleen. But that's not true, according to the court case and the way that events are being recounted by staff. Everything was more troublesome than the doctor claimed. And this emergency order, again, the order to pull the doctor's license, specifies that the doctor, Shagnovsky, thought that Bryan's liver was the spleen.
I don't think you can live without a liver. That's true, right?
Exactly.
You can't. Exactly. That's not a survivable organ to remove.
Yeah.
You can transplant it.
It was only one away.
You think they acted really too quickly. Right. Hey, guys, come on. Give me a mulligan. I mean, at least this is a... the idea somehow, apparently he returned to the operating room 3 times during this entire process, insisting that the patient had this artery aneurysm in the spleen. But what they're saying is, no, dude, you took out the liver instead of the spleen, and you don't know what you're doing.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Yeah. No. So he's denied wrongdoing, but clearly the medical board there, and medical boards are loath to yank licenses. They did this in a hurry, and he's had his medical license removed like that guy's liver was removed.
Good day,
yeah.
sir.
But
forever, or is that a temporary situation?
Oh, I'd be very surprised if he can get it back.
It's over for you.
Yeah. And finally, I believe it was this guy who, I remember Tony really loved this in the Hurricane Helene story. And look, there's so many horrible stories out of there, but this is the Florida guy whose house is filling with water as a result of the floodwaters, and he takes to a kayak in his living room to get around his house. This is it. He rode out the hurricane in the kayak there. You see a picture of it now. He's got a kayak he's on the phone, and he's literally in swim trunks, and he's in the kayak. There, is that the guy? I guess it is.
Yeah,
Matthew Heller. Yeah. So the waters have receded a bit, and so he's likely stowed the kayak, but you can see that Kayak Man is now famous for his kayak movements around his living room. And with that, we must pick a favorite. I'll remind you, we have the Florida man facing charges following the low-speed chase in Flagler County. The Florida man arrested for sleeping on the Walmart roof. The doctor who took out the liver instead of the spleen, and the kayaking living room dweller. I don't want to pick a favorite, but it's in the bylaws of the show that we must. So I ask you, Kim, what's your favorite, please?
Since I voted for
Kim, how are you?
Since I voted for Kayak Guy last week, I'm going to vote for our doctor.
No?
Yeah. A
Yeah,
shocking
doctor.
turn of events that he's now no longer a doctor. Yeah, that's my vote.
Michael, you're a guest here at the end. You're allowed to pick a favorite.
Well, in fairness, I did not meet Bachelor number one. I green room for 2, 3, and 4. Of those, I mean, the doctor doesn't seem terribly Floridian, though what happened was pretty Floridian. The kayak guy, having a kayak in your living room in the first place, like he had a kayak in the house, I think that's pretty interesting. But I think sleeping on the Walmart roof to me is as a guest only. I'm not an expert.
No,
I
think your opinion. Yeah, your opinions are
very
a good one.
and I don't know what the first guy did.
Yeah, the first guy was a slow speed chase, just so you know, but it was like literally going from 1 to 3 miles an hour to evade cops, and it went on forever. But I like that you evaluate in terms of Florida, that is to say, what's most consistent with the profile of the segment and being a Floridian and being a Florida-related story. So I like that. Albert, did you have a favorite, please?
I like the low-speed chase. It's just a wild headline. Just low-speed chase is very fun to look at. Also, the chat loves the Oregon Oopsie, and by love, it's just slightly above the living room kayak.
Okay, living room kayak and Oregon Oopsie. I love that you call it Oregon Oopsie. All right, Albert with the cute Friday Fabulous Florida titles every week. I would pick for my favorite the dude sleeping on the Walmart roof. I just think that's perfect, and it's so, as perhaps noted by Michael as well, it's very Florida. Thanks, everybody. Please mention, if you're watching in delay, what your favorite is. We do read all the comments and favorites, and it lets us, the commissioner, retool the segment so it conforms with those things that you enjoy. That's Friday Fabulous Florida for today.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
The audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. It's a great Friday, and you know what Fridays mean. Fridays mean we get a moment to look back at the week in politics, look ahead. at the next few weeks, which will be eventful to say the least, with the guy who has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. He is Michael Shure, everyone. What's up, Michael?
It was
Thank
fun,
you in advance.
Fun being in Florida with you guys today.
Yeah, we liked that Michael just hung out with us and did our Friday Fabulous Florida segment. Michael, we were having a bit of a conversation about these endorsements. You know, with a month still to go in the race, and then we'll get to the Walz debate. We kind of did that already. You made an appearance, especially, but we can talk about maybe the ripple effects or what the follow-up is in a moment. But I'm more curious about the high-profile endorsements, and even those who were showing up on the stump with Kamala Harris in the case of Liz Cheney, right? And even other members of the Trump administration, those who served with Donald Trump, are now going out on the stump with Kamala Harris saying, we can't have Donald Trump in the Oval Office again. Tell me about the endorsements and the Bruce Springsteen endorsement that we ran a little bit of. What effect does this have?
You know, it's hard to say. Endorsements used to be super important, and now we live in a society which pushes back on people telling you how to think and what to think. But by the same token, I don't know if it's here that we talked about this, but there's something about the permissibility of voting for someone who you ordinarily might not, because someone is endorsing them. Now, of all the endorsements this season, I happen to think, as cheapening as it is to what I cover, the Taylor Swift's is the most important, because there aren't people waiting to hear who Dick Cheney's going to endorse. And once he made his endorsement of Harris, you can't see a lot of people going out and registering to vote. What Taylor Swift does in one fell swoop is not only say who she's voting for, which influences what other people may think, but people are going out and registering to vote by the thousands. Maybe not, the hundreds of thousands, but the thousands makes a difference. So getting people to register to vote who would presumably vote the way that the person who inspired that registration would, the same way, I think that's important. I think, also you see Cassidy Hutchinson and some of the people that served in the Trump White House out there with Vice President Harris, endorsing, speaking truth about what they witnessed in the White House and why this guy is not fit to serve. All of that's important. It all helps. It helps that person on the fence who has never voted for a Democrat, or has never voted for a woman, or has, a little bit of angst about telling people that they're voting for someone who is in Donald Trump in their neighborhood. It makes it okay for that person. Again, on the margins, but still the margins are what may decide this election. So I think it's important.
I love your take on the permission, because I really believe that's what it is. It's you need to be able to say, oh, it's okay for me to cross and vote the other way.
Yeah.
Now, what has happened in the days since the debate, every high-profile person that I've read agrees with us. And I'll remind everyone that both you and myself looked at the debate, said I'd score it about even, but if you forced me to pick a winner, I guess it would be J.D. Vance, just for his fluidity, Now, it's his fluidity through total lies and misrepresentations. I mean, the guy, but just to review, now it seems as though a lot of punditry, not that it matters particularly, but I do think that there was a rah-rah for a while right in the hours afterward and in the day afterward. And I was almost run off of my own show for suggesting somehow that, Tim Walz, wasn't dominant. But Walz certainly had a great finish to the debate. I'm just wondering about the ripple effects. I mean, as I say, it seemed to be so close. You made the point that, unless something really eventful happens at a vice presidential debate, historically it has little or no effect.
Yeah, and I don't think that anything historic happened here. I think Tim Walz got his stride a little bit later, and traditionally we would say, that means a lot of people watch the early part and then sort of fade off or go back to the baseball game or whatever else is on or whatever else they're doing. But in this case, I think it was a little different, because we're in 2024, and a lot of people don't take this stuff in live. They record it when they get back from dinner, when they stop watching the baseball game, they watch clips later, and those clips later, the first one you're going to watch most likely is the first one that's thrown at you, and that's Tim Walz at the end. So it kind of evens out in that way. Look, Walz wasn't dazzling. Vance departed from the Vance we'd seen on the trail, the kind of nasty tone that he has taken, and he went right back to it the next morning, even saying things against Tim Walz, to whom he was very sort of congenial and very civil on the night of the debate, which I thought was a good tactic for Vance to take. But I go back to it not mattering because nothing really happened there, nothing is decisive. And I think this is an election that is about the former president more than it's about any of the other three people in the race.
Harris and Trump remain neck and neck in all 7 battleground states, according to new polls that were just released. The Cook Political Report, swing state project surveys conducted bipartisan polling showing Harris between 1 and 3 points ahead in 5 of the states, easily within the margin of error. In North Carolina, Harris and Trump are exactly tied. I'm getting to a question about North Carolina and even Florida here in a second. Harris leads Trump in Michigan. Harris leading Trump in Michigan by 3 percentage points. She also leads by 1 or 2 points in Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Trump is leading by 2 percentage points head-to-head in Georgia. This represents essentially the exact same result, Michael Shure, that we were getting in mid-August. I mean, nothing is changing. My question is about what we can glean from this, and also about Florida. In the first hour, we began talking about, is Florida in play? Isn't Florida in play? How much might it be in play? What would it take for it to be in play? I wonder if you could comment on that as well.
You know, Florida is one of those states that is traditionally looked at as maybe it's in play, but it hasn't been in play for a while, at least not on the national stage. What changes it is this measure that's a ballot measure legalizing abortion. It's an abortion measure that is going to get a lot of pro-choice voters out to vote for that. And the thought is pro-choice Trump voters would also vote for Harris because there are so few of them because of what's going on and on the issue of abortion. So it may change the way it looks. It may also change the Senate race in Florida, where you have a former Congresswoman, Debbie Powell, running against Rick Scott, who was the sitting senator, beat a sitting senator in 2018. He's a former governor. Pretty popular, and pretty popular in constituencies where you wouldn't expect him to be popular. That was when he was a governor. He ran a close race for Senate against Nelson. And now he's looked at as one of the hopes to be unseated for the Democrats to keep control of the Senate. I think it's a little pie in the sky, but if this is we say wave election, this is an election where all of those close polls go toward Harris, there's going to be a surprise. That's generally the way these trends work. So let's say these battleground states where you saw that polling, let's say all but Georgia go to Vice President Harris and Georgia goes back to former President Trump. There's a trend there, and that trend can carry on to a vulnerable state. And Florida could be seen as vulnerable, I think, because of that abortion ballot measure. Texas as a Senate race, I still don't think it's there, but there's reason to be more hopeful than you otherwise might have been. And again, you're talking about these polls, Mark, that in August matching what the polls are now. That means that the energy that the Biden abdication created has not really waned. It's kind of stayed steady throughout from August to September, and now we're in early October, a month ahead of the election. So I think that these are, it explains too why it goes back to the conversation we were having about these endorsements. If they affect one person or two people in per congressional district, that could tip a state at this point. Maybe it's 20 people, but whatever. So I think all of it matters on that thin, slim number of people that are going to make up that difference.
Donald Trump is a history maker, as you know. We've seen him for the first time become a president, and former president in this case, who was indicted and convicted, and now he's charged in these other criminal trials that may or may not begin. And there was just a release of a lot of the details of January 6th because these details will have to be reviewed by a judge to determine whether or not this the details that will be brought in as evidence in the case shouldn't be brought in because they are likely immune, the actions that are detailed, immune, given the president's general cloak of immunity for anything that's an official act. So it gets then to the point which is associated with just details. That is to say, I'm hearing now about how much he didn't care whether Pence lived or died. I'm hearing now about how he sat in the Oval Office with Eastman and planned this chaos. He really began to plan this coup over some time, it would seem, but a lot of the details of the coup from January 6th, the day of the violent coup attempt, seems to be coming, those details seem to be coming out now. So with that too lengthy preamble, I ask you, will any of those details have an impact in your view, or are we just so baked into our view that it's likely not to matter?
That's the right phrase. I think it is baked in now. I think we all know this. We've known it for a while. The people who love him in spite of this. The people who can't stand him, couldn't stand him because of this and many other reasons. I suppose, and again, for consistency here, that there are some voters who are trying as hard as they can to vote for Donald Trump, Republicans who want to vote for him so badly, but there's something preventing them from voting for him that may either sit it out or vote for Harris the more they hear. I mean, this is explicit stuff about what happened on January 6th that we hadn't known. I mean, we'd known basics of it. We'd known kind of the idea, but this specific we didn't know. So maybe it affects that voter, but I wouldn't, it's not the kind of thing where 30 years ago, if this came out as an October surprise, it would change an election, right? I mean, there's a bit of Teflon around Donald Trump on these issues alone. They feel victimized. He's portrayed himself as someone who's being persecuted by the Justice Department. The people that like him, they're already there, and the people who are looking for a reason not to vote for him or looking for a reason to vote for him, this puts them a little farther away from voting for him.
I was just looking over some of the other stuff he has to deal with. He's got a state election interference case in Georgia, et cetera. So, but as to the effect on the election, as you say, it looks to be nominal. So in this sprint that is associated with, I think, getting the vote out, wouldn't you agree? And, trying to motivate your base and, of course, all those independent voters. What is an effective strategy? And I will just say this. It seems as though Trump's thing is, I know there are a lot of clips showing up of him, around on the stump, et cetera, but he's kind of kicking it. He's doing sort of just perfunctory appearances, and I don't see him as a full court press guy. The Harris people, they are getting out there in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in some of these swing states. I wonder if you could speak to how both campaigns are handling this last dash, if you will, and what's important in the last dash.
Well, I mean, what's important typically is someone like Trump should be doing both candidates should be doing what they can do to get out the vote. Trump has, we've had disasters affect presidential races before. Hurricane Sandy allowed Barack Obama to be the president and put his arm around Chris Christie in New Jersey and show bipartisanship and work and use the power of the office. Donald Trump, for his purposes, is using this Hurricane Helene in Georgia and his ties to Elon Musk and his ability to say, hey, we're going to put these charging stations in there. We're going to be able to get as much information out. We're going to be able to reach people. So he's a former president, but being active with his people to try and do something to influence voters in Georgia in a kind of here I come to save the day way. However, this election, if Kamala Harris is able to win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, it doesn't matter what Donald Trump wins after that in terms of these swing states. So I think that that Harris is in her blue wall. She's trying to get out the vote, like you said. I think she took a blow by not getting the firefighters union and the Teamsters unions to endorse, but they didn't endorse Trump either. But those are the kind of things that help to get out a reliable base and reliable constituencies. That's what Harris needs most. She also has catching up to do. Donald Trump has been on the national stage as a campaigner now for 9 or 10 years. That's not the case with Kamala Harris, and she's been a vice president, and she's been thrust into this role in the past 10 to 12 weeks, and those sorts of things take time, right? So her role, though, is absolutely, we need to get out young voters. We need to register new voters. We need to get black voters. We need to get as many Hispanic voters who have typically voted for Democrats to come back and vote for Democrats again. And we need to get our unions out. And if they're able to do that, then I think their campaign is confident that they can win this election.
I have a couple of questions that are coming up in the chat. I'll get to them in a second, but I wanted, just because you mentioned labor, talk to you about what's happened. The dock strike has been put off now. There's been a pause in that dock strike, which was significant because that would have affected a lot of things in the American economy. It would have, I think, in a way, though, amplified the difference between Trump and Harris, although, Trump wraps himself in the moment, and he does it, just by proclaiming it, even though it's bankrupt of any kind of reality. In the case of labor, he didn't walk the picket lines with auto workers. Biden did. He set up a photo op with people who were non-union workers and implied that it was union workers. So that's now, though, at least backburnered until January. The situation with labor and the Democrats is an odd one because going back to Reagan, you had an undoing of support for organized labor by the GOP. Michael?
Yeah. Well, there's also, our unions have historically been white male dominated, and white males are historically or currently found in the Republican Party. And there are a lot of rank and file union members. And, I'm surprised that they resolved this as quickly as they did. I'm surprised for two reasons. Well, I'm surprised by two things related to it. One is that Harold Daggett, who's the president of the Longshoremen, is a Trump supporter, and he's an avowed Trump supporter. And I thought this was a power play to use this to destabilize the economy and hurt Biden and get Trump reelected. I mean, that's how you have to be a reporter and be skeptical of everything you see. And I'm not always, but in this case, I was. The other side of it is, now that it's been resolved, I was looking for a little bit of a victory parade or victory dance from the president and the vice president on this, that they were able to get, at least some influence through the Department of Labor to calm things down and get this cooling off period and get this negotiation. We didn't get that either. But these are the sorts of things with labor that if the union itself feels that their rank and file is not in line with an endorsement from that union, they're better off not endorsing. Union leadership usually knows that that the CEOs and the corporate people are found in the Republican Party, and the union members and their interests are best represented by the Democratic Party. That said, if you have a lot of Trumpers in your union, it may not be prudent to endorse the vice president, but not endorsing is tantamount to endorsing the other side. But again, we go back to your very first question today: how much do endorsements matter? I think this is an election where they don't matter that much.
Quickly to the comments, Grady says, "How about Melania talking about women's reproductive rights?" I was suggesting, just to let you know where I am on this, that Melania, I'm not even going to say that she doesn't believe that, but I thought it was a strategic release of the information to sort of soften those who might have a dug-in view about the Trump administration. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be too cynical, but and it was also associated with her book release. So,
yeah,
go ahead. What do you think?
These things do happen with book releases, but it doesn't make them. You can still take it for what it is, whether there's a book or not. I mean, she's trying to sell books, and I always think when you get the the most scurrilous or most scandalous parts of a book, and they release those. Well, I've already learned that, so I don't need to, not that I was going to necessarily read Mrs. Trump's book, but it doesn't make me want to read. It's like I've learned all I need to know now that, where she stands and she differs with her husband. But a lot of Democrats were like, aha, right, there's division. She can stand up to him. But I thought it was helpful to Republicans. I thought it was helpful to people who might be terrified of Trump, women especially, who might be terrified of Trump, but see his wife speak up for being pro-choice, and that they can have a voice in the bigger Trump household in that way. So I thought it was, if anything, a little helpful to Trump.
Well, I mean, again, you prove how smart you are because you agree with me. And that's exactly.
If I could change my mind.
Who is having that conversation?
All right. So I'd also like to then offer you this question from Edward Lee, who gives us a $5 super chat. May you please explain this to me like I'm 5 years old? Why does the popular vote matter if the Electoral College can vote against the winner of the popular vote?
Well, it matters in terms of defining a mandate and it matters rhetorically. It doesn't matter in how we elect our presidents, but it matters rhetorically. And it matters, I think, also to the powers of a state. So if you get a huge popular vote victory in a state, or you only win by a little bit, then the resources that go into that state change, both from whoever wins or loses, but also the parties themselves. So if, for example, the Democrats are super close in Texas, and I'm making this up, and they lose Texas by a percentage point, that's a big population, a lot of popular vote, a lot of registered voters in that state, then Democrats can put many more resources into that state because they see it as a prize that they can get to more quickly, which you don't really, which doesn't translate nationally. I also think that in terms of legislative mandate, if you have X percent of the country, even if you didn't win in an electoral landslide, but you win in a popular vote landslide, that could be looked at as kind of a mandate on legislation. It means you can do riskier things because you feel as if the country has your back. So these are subtle and intangible, but the bottom line to whoever asked that question is it doesn't decide the presidency. You can, as we've seen before, lose the, we saw George Bush lose the popular vote, win the electoral vote, Trump, Rutherford Hayes going, there are a handful of presidents who've had that happen. And it doesn't change. The Electoral College is how we elect our president still.
The situation in the Middle East, as I saw this thing spill over and involve, more and more fronts, essentially, in a multi-front war.
Yeah.
I wondered to what extent, and again, I know we always want to fit things into some kind of existing framework, so we call it the October surprise, and I feel like everything now has to be wedged into October surprise. Was the release of the Jack Smith detail stuff, is that or is what's happening in the Middle East, is that the October surprise? Is the dock workers strike, is that the October? I mean, so I don't mean to necessarily tag it as the October surprise, but what I do mean to ask is, to what extent this situation, which does appear to be boiling over a bit, to what extent might it influence the election one way or another? If what series of events happens, does someone of the two candidates benefit?
Well, I think that what you're seeing now from the Harris-Walz campaign is a really concentrated and apparently well-received outreach to Muslim Americans, saying that while America has been a good ally to Israel, a better than good ally to Israel, they're the only people that are talking about the Palestinians. They're the only people that are talking about the other side of this conflict. And yes, it's an awkward dance and it's imperfect. And clearly Israel is getting, more pie than Gaza is, and than the Lebanese and the Iranians and whomever else. But what I think, to that end, it gets the Democrats out there to constituency that is soft but important, because they're very prominent in Michigan, they're prominent in Wisconsin, they're somewhat prominent in Pennsylvania, And so this gives them an opportunity both to, to have President Biden, as he said today, say that I have been the best and this administration has been the best on Israel. Just because we are not talking about just because we are talking about the other regions of the world doesn't mean that we're still not a friend to Israel. So he played it well there. So I think that's what this is. I don't see this as a surprise. The longshoreman strike, had it gone on, that would have been a little bit of an October surprise because it wasn't something that was in anybody's calculation. People, again, have this idea of what's going on, these conflicts around the world. That's already in the calculation here as to who I'm going to vote for, they're going to vote for. So I do think that this doesn't ring true, but it's an opportunity that Democrats are now seizing where they think they have an upper hand here.
And so we wrap up our conversation with you, Michael Shure, unless there's something else I didn't see, guys. I will excuse the witness.
You wanted I should let you say it, but I interrupted. Today is the opening of the NHL season.
Oh, so, that's got to be. Kamish, you have to be excited about that too, Albert. The opening of the NHL season.
Very excited, and Amazon has this new series that just came out too, documenting some stuff from last season, which is really exciting.
Yeah, so the whole what was the HBO began it, right, when they did Hard Knocks, and now every sport's got a Hard Knocks. Tennis has it, hockey has it.
It's a hard knock life, Mark.
It's a hard knock. Thank you. I thought of you because in the first hour we mentioned the Bruce Springsteen endorsement, as I think I noted to you. Yeah. And it got us wondering, because there was a lot of talk in the chat, how old is Bruce Springsteen? I'm guessing you before you answer, will Michael Shure know how old Bruce Springsteen is? Don't you dare, how dare you? I see the screen lighting up. Don't you dare Google it. Don't you dare Google it.
I'm not Googling how old Bruce Springsteen is.
Okay.
I don't
Google it.
Promise I'm not Googling that. I'm looking.
Okay.
There's a hockey game going on right now, and the Devils are up 4-1 on the Sabres in Prague. So
what?
I said NHL. Right. I was like, oh, what's happening?
I don't even care anymore. All right. Thank you,
Michael. Part of the
Bruce
Springsteen endorsement, by the way, and I'll guess that Bruce Springsteen is 76. My favorite part of the Bruce Springsteen endorsement was at the opening where he says, "Hi, I'm Bruce Springsteen." Oh, really? That was great. How old is Bruce Springsteen?
He's 75. Yeah, I don't think I'd applaud it. He's close though. Very well done.
Yeah, I wouldn't applaud. I didn't get it right.
I thought I would have guessed 72. Tom said 74. Yeah, but he's 75 is the answer. Yeah. Michael, thank you. We'll look for you on TYT and beyond, and we'll see you next week. So appreciate your input always. You're a great voice of reason on this show, and I appreciate you coming through.
I'm glad to be here. It's a final 4-1. Devils win in Prague over
Michael Shure with more information we don't care about. Thank you very, very much, sir. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
My wife wants some vegetables for crudité.
Emil Schaffhausen, a salad.
Jada had nothing to do with it.
I completely disagree.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. And this is their new hoax.
Why are you yelling?
You do not know what you are talking about.
It was great. I loved it. Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
Saudi Arabia pays cash.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Hey Mark, it's George Santos here. A lot of people are telling me you're a liar. Seriously, what the
Right on. Right on. I am loving it.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Don't even
play.
No. Friday is the day to play, though.
The audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
Oh, is that okay? Hey, I got a nice message before I get to the Culture Blaster. I got a nice message from a new Patreon subscriber. You know, we're a crowd-funded show. We exist because of you. It's an NPR, PBS type model. It's that whole, if you like this show and you want to see more shows like it, if you want us to stay in this show, please consider being a monthly supporter. And so our monthly supporters on Patreon and PayPal are really keeping us afloat right now. So it's great to have subscribers. Subscribing costs nothing, and you sharing the show really does help. That's how we've been able to grow this audience. But anyway, the Patreon and PayPal links are underneath all our videos, and we have also at our website, themarkthompsonshow.com. But Steve just is Steve P, I'll call it.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to him. He is our new and newest Patreon member. Hi, Mark. Just became a member of the show. I listened to KGO for decades, he says. So this is my...
I've received a lot of positive letters.
It is a positive letter. I've also listened to the Mark Thompson Show from the beginning.
Wow.
I thought it high time to contribute. It's funny because neither one of the people I do this show with were actually on the Mark Thompson Show from the beginning. The news person was Brett in San Francisco on KGO, and I built him up to be a huge star, and then he left.
What?
And I don't blame him for leaving. He saw that there were issues, and they tried to lowball him on money, I think, and so he went across the street and made a lot of money. But which is great. I mean, I'm on Team Brett, not a problem. And then that gave me the amazing Kim, right? Sometimes, it's meant to be. And then I had a producer named Dave. That's how I started with at KGO. And Dave, I gave him the name on the air, Evil Dave, and I would always yell at him. Like the same way I do here, like faux yelling, being angry at Dave for telling me to go to a commercial or you were running out of time or whatever. And that was a lot of fun. But then Albert came along, and Albert was dreamy. I mean, Albert was everything. We called him fresh-faced producer Albert because he sounded young on the radio. And he's been with us all this time. So
I'm sure the callers back then enjoyed me a little more than Dave. Dave ran a very tight ship with anybody who would try to call in. You'd have to have the best points to get on the air.
Dave, I remember, because I like a lot of audience interaction. You can tell that. And Dave and I said, we should set up an email address so people can write into the show and I can share their thoughts on the show through email. They shouldn't just have to call in. And he said, why would you ever want to read an email from a viewer or from a listener, he said.
What?
And my view is just the opposite. I want to read every email from listeners. I think they're oftentimes insightful, always entertaining, or much of the time entertaining. Yeah. So anyway, but I will tell you this, I love Dave. He was smart. He was super smart. And for that reason, but by the time I got to KGO, he was already burnt out. And he couldn't make it in San Francisco on that salary as a producer, so he had to bartend in Oakland and then come to the city during it's just very tough. So anyway, we ended up with Albert, and, we had John in between too, and so it was one of those things where we end up with a really cool crew, and that's what we have now, Kim and Albert and myself, and we appreciate the fact that Tony's on board now, and so it's a fun crew, but I do, was I in the middle of... Oh, here, sorry. So let me just finish this out. Boy, Michael Snyder right now is going, really, man? This is what you're delaying with before you get to my segment?
This is a classic Mark Thompson time waster.
All right. So in the spirit of wasting time, again, Steve writes, hi, Mark. Just became a member of the show. I listened to KGO for decades. I've also listened to the Mark Thompson Show from the beginning. I thought it's high time to contribute monthly, $20 a month, to play my part to keep you on the air. I'm so grateful to be able to hear you all live. It makes my day. Thank you, Kim. Wow, Kim, you got a special shout out.
Kim, how are you?
Thanks,
and
Steve
Albert.
P.
Albert, thank you.
And
Nice.
Tony, he said.
Thanks, Tony.
And all your fabulous guests. Peace and blessings from Perry is how he signs it. And I told him it means a lot. And I'd share the email. And so I do. Really, really cool to have you on board. Again, Patreon and PayPal is the way you can support us on an ongoing basis. Thank you for all the ways you support the show, all the interaction with the show, even you commenting, all these things help. We love engagement with the audience, and it's one of the great things about this platform, so thank you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Without any further delay, I think we need to do it, don't we, Kim? We need to get to the Culture Blaster.
Yeah, it's time.
He's waited patiently.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this guy has a record on movies, on music, on streaming offerings. He is our light in the night. He comes and goes on a rainbow. He is the magnificent Michael Snyder, everybody. The Culture Blaster.
Hey, I'm not Bruce Springsteen, but I am voting for Harris and Waltz.
Okay.
Wait, Mark, before we go any further, any more anecdotes? I just want to get them out of your system while I can. Give me an anecdote or two. You know, Mark.
I told you he wouldn't be happy.
Don't talk to me that way.
Exactly.
You know, Mark, they say celebrity deaths come in threes. And so the past few days, I've seen the passing of Dame Maggie Smith, Chris Christopherson, and Pete Rose, 3 all-time greats in their respective fields. But what people don't ever talk about is that for many years, they were a throuple. That's right.
That was very inappropriate.
Wow.
Love's a mystery, Mark. Speaking of mystery, we're in October, one of my favorite months of the year. Halloween's coming up. And in the spirit of fun and frolic, tomorrow night at the Cat Club in San Francisco, Booty Mashup is doing their Disney party. So if you're a Disney kid who loves to dance and hang out and want to get into the middle of the happiest place on earth, that would be Booty at the Cat Club on Folsom in San Francisco.
Those are great shows, those Booty shows, for sure.
Yeah, Adriana and Jupiter and the rest of the gang are going to be putting on. They'll be like lip syncy things. It'll be a lot of fun. But we're really here to do film reviews, and I think we should get going. What do you say?
Yes. Also, it's mentioned John Amos died. Yeah,
well, a number of people passed away, but he wasn't in the thruple.
Oh, he wasn't? Okay, you're sure of that?
He was a zaddy into good times, though. I'll tell you that. That's John Amos, a handsome man. Insofar as this is the 50th anniversary year of NBC's stalwart sketch comedy show, Saturday Night Live, it kind of made sense that director and screenwriter Jason Reitman's engagingly frenetic docudrama Saturday Night is hitting theaters. I mean, Reitman's connection to the long-running series is almost genetic. His father, Ivan Reitman, was the filmmaker responsible for the SNL-adjacent comedy Ghostbusters, bringing it to the screen, a movie that featured 2 of the earliest SNL cast members, Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray. And true to that legacy, Jason directed and co-wrote Ghostbusters Afterlife, the recent and quite satisfying sequel. And now Jason Reitman, abetted by his Afterlife co-screenwriter Gil Keenan, has delivered Saturday Night, which purports to show in real time the unhinged 90 minutes that preceded the broadcast of the very first episode of what was then simply called Saturday Night, because at that time there was an ABC variety show hosted by Howard Cosell and called Saturday Night Live. And when that tanked, they ended up, grabbing the title, and the rest is history. So at its start in October of 1975, SNL was, let's say green, let's say untested. It featured the not ready for primetime players, Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, Chevy Chase, Gilda Radner, Jane Curtin, Lorraine Newman, and Garrett Morris. And the movie is a portrayal of what went down to get this thing on the air, and there were pitfalls, and there were NBC executives that wanted to scotch it. They had a rerun of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson sitting ready to go in case there was some kind of failure. This was going to be live. Again, there was skepticism there. In any case, the movie also features, in addition to a bunch of young actors playing the not ready for primetime players. The first episode's musical guest, Billy Preston. You see writers, including Al Franken and Tom Davis. You see the show's first guest host, George Carlin, and many, many others. But appropriately, since this is about the conception of SNL, the most prominent person depicted is co-creator and showrunner Lorne Michaels, who at the time was a little-known Canadian writer and performer. And with NBC employee and eventual network sports maven and interim SNL showrunner Dick Ebersol, he launched the show in front of this host of skeptical executives. I got to say, it is the cast led by Gabriel LaBelle, who, by the way, played Steven Spielberg, the role based on Spielberg in The Fabelmans, as Michaels here. And this cast is what makes Saturday Night work, even as the kinetic doings on screen come at you fast and furious and feature bits of skits and interactions that actually couldn't have and didn't occur during that hour and a half ramp up to the broadcast. I think they're there as Easter eggs and to give a certain sort of sense of verity and what was, beloved and important. For instance, there's a moment where the actors playing Franken and Davis, who are quite good, the guy playing Al Franken looks like a young Al Franken. They nailed that. But they are with Dan Aykroyd, played by Dylan O'Brien, who people may know from TV's Teen Wolf, and they're working out the soon-to-be-famous and fake blood-drenched Julia Childs skit that wouldn't air until later in the series. So it's all like, look, it's Saturday Night Live, There are hints of Chevy Chase's eventual departure from the show and so on. That said, O'Brien, Corey Michael Smith as Chase, Ella Hunt as Gilda Radner. There's a moment where the character of Gilda Radner, as played by Ella Hunt, she's wrapping up a little, a little rehearsal. And when they're done, she skips off to another part of the studio. And her physical embodiment of Gilda Radner's joy and kind of youthful verve just nails the character. There's also Emily Fain plays Lorraine Newman. I guess the best known actor who is portraying one of the players is Lamorne Morris, who just won an Emmy for his work on Fargo and is the guy in the BMO ads. But he's absolutely great as Garrett Morris, no relation. They do little bits and skits that tie into things. You actually get the son of Philip Seymour Hoffman, Cooper Hoffman, as Dick Ebersol. And Ebersol was kind of always always had kind of a slimy vibe about him. And Letterman used to talk about him being drenched in aftershave and all this other stuff. They nailed it. You also get Willem Dafoe as the main NBC network executive who is hoping for the show to tank and has the Johnny Carson episode poised to go. He's great. Unbelievably, Matthew Rhys of The Americans and Perry Mason plays George Carlin, unrecognizable. John Batista's Billy Preston and J.K. Simmons as old line TV superstar Milton Berle, who is the antithesis of everything that Saturday Night Live is about. All of them together make the trip really worthwhile. And again, the frenzy is fun, and it's not really what those 90 minutes before airtime were like in terms of what goes on screen. But I enjoyed it, and I had a good time. And there was a show called Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip that Aaron Sorkin did, and he tried to show what it was like backstage at one of these sketch comedy shows. This is way better in terms of dealing with that. It may be shallow, but I dug it. Saturday night is in theaters.
Wow, he really gave it quite the hug. By the way, you used the word abetted, sir, did you?
I may have.
And you used the word purported, did you? Yeah,
I may have.
And the word verity. All right.
Entirely possible.
Others have been noted by Tom, who is the keeper of the day. Yeah.
As flawed as it was, I liked it. Speaking of flawed, and maybe I didn't quite like it so much, let's talk briefly about Joker. Folie
it opens today. Joker, how do you say it? Folie à deux?
Folie à deux. It means madness times two, essentially.
Okay.
And it stars, as you can see, Joaquin Phoenix as writer-director Todd Phillips' version of DC Comics' Joker, Batman's archenemy. The movie that preceded this, called Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck, failed stand-up comic, brutalized party clown, and eventual murderer, was a massive success. It's kind of like an Elseworlds version of the DC villain, and purports to make him sympathetic. And if you saw it, you know that it, in large part, evokes Martin Scorsese's King of Comedy. There are aspects of it that really parallel King of Comedy, but Joker worked on a number of different levels. This sequel finds Arthur Fleck in jail awaiting trial for the murders he committed, a spoiler alert, on television, on a talk show. And he is in a facility, maybe for the criminally insane, maybe it's just a standard prison, but it is adjacent to an asylum where people aren't necessarily criminals. And in a great leap of plausibility, in other words, rather implausible, a frenemy guard in his prison, played by the great Brendan Gleeson, brings him to a choir rehearsal in the other facility where he meets Harleen Quinzel, Lee, who is basically the Harley Quinn character in this movie. And of course, sparks fly, they fall in love. The movie goes on to, show what happens when he finally comes to trial. There's an attempt to see if he's, in control of his faculties, if he's fit, is there a split personality situation? There are song and dance numbers that pop up. It just does not hold together. Lady Gaga as Lee Quinzel, the Harley Quinn character, is wonderful. She's got a beautiful singing voice. They sing a lot of standards. Joaquin Phoenix doesn't even try to sing. I mean, he sings, but I don't know if you could call it singing. And throughout, their chemistry may be good, but how things play out is just kind of so haphazard. It just doesn't really cohere for some reason. And, again, I'm rooting for it, even though I'm not a big fan of these recalibrations and I guess, like I said, Elseworlds versions of the characters. But the first movie had power, and this thing kind of fritters a little bit of that away. Joker, folie à deux, hard to recommend it. I guess, Gaga's great. Let's put it that way. I wish it had been better.
The performances were good. Phoenix is a brilliant actor. Was he good?
Yeah, but he isn't given enough to work with that makes any sense. And again, all this implausible stuff happens. And I know there are fantasy moments where they're bursting into song, and a few of them are quite stirring and exciting. But for some reason, it just doesn't work. By the way, Catherine Keener plays Arthur's psychiatrist. Steve Coogan shows up to interview Arthur Fleck prior to his trial, and Coogan is basically doing Piers Morgan, and I kind of like that little sequence, but ultimately it just didn't work. For me, I had quibbles with that Saturday Night, but ultimately I can recommend it. The quibbles in terms of Joker, folie à deux, just a bridge too far, if you will.
All right. Wow. It was a much anticipated offering, the sequel to The Joker. But Michael says just not enough there to.
Let's briefly talk about a few more films before we head into the weekend. Hold Your Breath is sort of a Western horror movie set in the Oklahoma Dust Bowl in the 1930s, where a mother, well played by the great and always impressive actress Sarah Paulson, is trying to protect her two daughters. Her husband has gone off to try to earn money, working on the railroad or something. And the two girls, one of whom is deaf and mute, and mom are barricading against the constant dust storms. And there is kind of a local mythology that there's a creature called the Gray Man who is made out of the dust and can infiltrate your house and, take control of your mind and body. And that is where a lot of the horror lurks. And we try to, fight off those urges. But I guess in the Dust Bowl in the 1930s, when you're basically a mom alone with her daughters and worried about your well-being, things can haunt you. Things can kind of bend your mind.
What was the guy called? The Dust Man?
The Gray Man.
Oh, the Gray Man. Okay.
Made of Dust. Supporting players included the great Broadway actress Anna Lee Ashford, who, by the way, was in Masters of Sex and really good in that. She plays like a neighboring woman who's also on her own with her kids, and her kids are having problems.
She was great in Kinky Boots, too, I think, on Broadway. Yeah.
She's fantastic. Eben Moss-Bachrach, cousin on The Bear, plays a kind of a roving preacher who shows up who may or may not be a villain. Maybe he's channeling the Gray Man. Maybe the Gray Man is just, only in mom's mind. It's an atmospheric and somewhat effective horror movie. It's not great, but Paulson is so wonderful. Moss-Bachrach is great. The kids are good. And there is a creep factor. This, to me, when it comes to streaming, is probably something you might want to watch on a Saturday night. Again, not great, but it's okay.
And it's streamer on Hulu. Is that what you're saying?
It's on Hulu, yeah. So it's easy to watch.
All right. What else do you have? A great culture blaster.
A much better movie with a fantastic central performance is The Outrun. And I'll just say briefly, Saoirse Ronan plays a young woman who has been living in London. She's living the wild life. She's hitting the Hackney discos. She's got a boyfriend, and she has a serious drinking problem. I mean, a serious drinking problem, and it renders her absolutely unlikable. A friend of mine said, Saoirse Ronan playing someone unlikable? Oh, yeah. But what's good about this is she goes back to her roots in the Scottish Highlands, out by the turbulent seas that are abutting Scotland, and she tries to kind of clean up her act because things have gone to hell in London for her. And she's dealt with childhood family trauma. Her father has issues. Her mom has become very religious. And, this is a farm girl who's now been to the big city and has to rediscover what's good about herself. It's a healing journey to sobriety thing. And it's depicted in a very creative and occasionally fractured way by the director Nora Fingscheidt, who also co-wrote the movie. And so this woman, fresh out of rehab, goes to this windswept Scottish community, and she decides to actually be a part of a conservation group there. And this personal quest for tranquility and purpose that comes in the aftermath of the debilitating alcoholism is rather moving. And what a lovely performance by Saoirse Ronan. She is one of the great actors of her generation. This is quite stark and beautiful in terms of the cinematography. And again, it bounces back and forth between her, troubles in London and the things she had to deal with while growing up as a farm girl in this remote area. I thought it was pretty powerful stuff.
Well, it's being compared, the sort of journey to sobriety or the descent into those things that are associated with not being sober, being compared to Nick Cage in Leaving Las Vegas. Is that at all a comparable depiction, or is that just a kind of a... That's all that was being referenced in the chat.
To an extent, but not the fact that she returns to nature and she embraces that beautiful windswept land and finds herself in isolation and rediscovers kind of purpose and confronts her addiction. That stuff it's its own thing. I thought it was lovely, and I thought it was definitely worth seeing.
It's called The Outrun, and it's in theaters.
It is in theaters. Quickly, I want to mention, you always like to point out that I'm fine with those foreign films, and I love Quentin Dupieux. He is one of the most interesting. He's either French or Belgian. I don't know. I'm assuming he's French. He makes like crazy movies, and he has delivered a hilarious comedy called Dali with a lot of A's, and it's about Salvador Dali, and it's about a young French journalist who's trying to interview him, and Dali is played by a variety of different actors. Edouard Baird, Gilles Lelouch, there's an older Dali, there's a younger Dali. He's incredibly difficult to deal with, and Anaïs de Moustier plays the young journalist, and she's wonderful. And it's very surreal and bizarre and dreamlike. And I just thought it was fresh, original, and we've seen a few things dealing with Salvador Dali, the great surrealist painter, in the past number of years. This is another one, but man, I enjoyed this immensely. Again, French with subtitles, but totally rollicking comedy and crazy, fully crazy.
Wow, that's great. So you leave us with a little bit of a foreign sophistication, don't you, Culture Blaster?
I do what I can. One quick note for television viewers: The Penguin, which is a spinoff of Matt Reeves' The Batman that starred Robert Pattinson, was a gritty sort of realistic kind of look at what it would be like if Batman existed in the real world. The Penguin was one of the villains in that, and kind of depicted as not as a caricature really, but as a damaged individual, played brilliantly by Colin Farrell, unrecognizably so. And this spin-off series on HBO Max, that's right, I called it HBO Max. All right, we'll call it Max, is a tour de force for Colin Farrell, and also playing against type, the wonderful Kristen Milioti as Sophia Falcone, the daughter of Carmine Falcone, the gang boss that dies in the Batman movie, as she tries to maneuver to take over the family business, which of course is crime. And Colin Farrell is great. So it's a gritty crime drama, despite, again, inspired by a DC Comics villain and adversary to the Batman, the Penguin.
Wow, isn't that wild? Also, it's interesting because I've seen that poster when I'm on HBO Max or whatever they call it now, and it does look intriguing. Colin Farrell, I'll have to check it out based on the Culture Blaster's overwhelming endorsement of it. I've seen this from a couple of others, Michael. Phineas is saying, ask the Culture Blaster to quickly mention Tulsa King Season 2, The Penguin, which you just have mentioned, and The Old Man Season 2. I guess those are favorites, all three of Phineas.
The Old Man is wonderful, and it stars Jeff Bridges, who has grown into such a comfortable character lead. It's a treat. We don't have the time to get into great depth. I'll be straight up. I have not watched Sly Stallone and Tulsa King, but people speak highly of it.
Yeah, there you go. But here are the other offerings that Michael brought this day. He brought The Penguin, as he just mentioned, the Colin Farrell-led project where Colin Farrell plays that penguin character. He says it's gritty and it's real and it's good.
Oh, the prosthetic makeup is unbelievable because they don't look like makeup and they don't look like Colin Farrell, but you buy the character.
That's The Penguin. It's on Max. Dali, the Salvador Dali story, with several different actors playing Dali through this project. It is French with English subtitles, with Quentin Dupieux in the lead role.
No, he's the writer. He's writer-director. He's the guy, the madman behind this thing.
I see. Okay. Well, I didn't know who he was anyway. So should I know who he is, Quentin Dupieux?
Yeah, man, he makes amazing and crazy and surreal films, which I'll give you a list off air. Great stuff.
Thank you.
What?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just a dumb American. So what can I tell you?
You cannot say you love your country.
If it's not featured on NASCAR, I don't know what it is. All right, so The Outrun is the Saoirse Ronan film. She is playing someone unlikable, Michael says, which is amazing because you so want to like this great actress. And you will like this great actress playing the unlikable character in her journey of self-discovery from insobriety to sobriety. And apparently that journey is, in its own way, intoxicating. The Outrun, it's called. The Outrun. It's in theaters now. He really liked it. The other films he reviewed, Hold Your Breath. That is the Sarah Paulson film. It takes place during the Dust Bowl era, and indeed she's in the Dust Bowl. And she's protecting her two children from the dust storms that are so brutal, and from the legendary Gray Man, who's been spoken of as a supernatural creature that comes to life and can affect life during these various dust storms. It sounds intense.
Yeah, but he may be for real, and maybe he's only in their minds.
Yes,
but, yeah.
It could be a concoction of their own fearful psychology.
They're dusty fears.
Hold Your Breath is on Hulu now to be streamed. Joker, Folie à Deux. Director Todd Phillips bite at the apple again. The Batman villain headed up the first one Joaquin Phoenix did with great effect. It was a very popular film. I think it was acclaimed as such. In this case, the Culture Blaster is saying Phoenix is great, Gaga is great, but the script just isn't there. He feels there's just not enough to this. And he feels as well that understanding how you have to suspend some belief, and maybe in several instances along the way of a film, you might have to suspend some belief several times. This just requires a bit too much of the audience with limited payoff. He really just didn't think that this Joker sequel hit the mark. Is that a fair way to summarize it?
You are dead on with that one, Mark.
And finally, he started with Saturday Night. This is the telling of the Saturday Night Live story. And it has a number of high-profile people involved in it. But more to the point, Michael really felt as though everyone hit their marks quite well in this project and told the story of Saturday Night Live with a kind of both virtuosity and reality, that is a reflection of reality, that it felt veritas, it felt real, it felt authentic. And he really was impressed with the work that was done to tell this story. Saturday Night will be in theaters on October 11th. Yes?
My only caveats was their need to constantly fold in familiar skits that were from down the road or aspects of that to kind of give it the full SNL, if you know what I mean.
I see. So to kind of remind us that, there was a comedy with... I was always hoping that you would reference this in your review, that what was it called? Was it a Sorkin thing, or I forget who was
I brought it up. The Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. This does what that show tried to do.
Right. I mean, that's why I said you referenced it. Yeah, I just couldn't remember the name of it. But that's great that you feel like this hit the mark, because I thought that did miss the mark, as you said. What's that, Culture Blaster? Anything else? That and Booty, which is south of Market in San Francisco, if you're there.
Yeah, I'm still holding down the fort here in SF. Hope to be back in LA by November. Meanwhile, our 49ers go to war against the Arizona Cardinals. Brock Purdy has finally opened up the eyes of national sports media and is cutting through their bias about him being the last guy drafted. But, if he makes one misstep, they'll be back saying, oh, he's not really that good. Well, let's see what happens on Sunday. Let's put it that way.
I'm thinking, Michael, you're in San Francisco. We are coming to San Francisco for the fall show. It's at Fort Mason. And Courtney will be with me. And tickets are a little more than $20, but you get 25% off with the Mark discount, capital M-A-R-K. You go to eventbrite.com. Use the discount code MARK, M-A-R-K, and we'll be knocking around there, I think, the first day of the San Francisco Fall Show, as it's called. You can read about it at sffallshow.org. I believe the first day is a Thursday, and then it's a week from this coming Thursday. And then we'll be there Friday as well. So I think Thursday we'll really be knocking around there. And I'd like to invite you, Michael. And you know what? Kim is going to buy your ticket for you. And that is really so sweet of her.
I can't believe that. I was going to use the Culture Blaster discount, but whatever. We'll go with Kim.
Kim is being so generous.
Who is having that conversation?
Kim is having it. I didn't bring it up. I was amazed at her generosity.
I look forward to any time spent with you and Courtney, so we'll see how that plays out. And in the meantime, people can check out my articles at thevoicesf.org. There's a new one up right now. And man, I'm looking forward to next Friday on the Mark Thompson Show.
I love it. The enthusiasm, the magic, the dreaminess of a man who comes and goes on a rainbow. He's the Culture Culture Blaster, Michael Snyder. Thank you, Michael. We love you.
Everybody.
Keep on keeping on, buddy.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, we've had a thorough session together. We haven't had even time to stop for Kim's usually well-organized and well-researched newscast.
Which reminds me that we have a sponsor on Fridays. Every Friday, it's Tenuta Vineyards.
Damn right.
Since we didn't do news today, I do want to make sure that you know they have the I Love Lucy grape stomp that is going on
there
weekends.
are so great. Yeah.
So much fun. You have the mimosa when you first arrive. It's like the VIP treatment. You go out to the romantic setting of the vineyards and you clip your grapes off the vine in the crisp fall air.
Yes.
You come back to the Tenuta Vineyards winery, have a nice lunch. They have a big spread, so good.
I'm drunk already.
You take off your shoesies and you climb in the tub and you squish the grapes between your toes.
Yes.
Said to be a wonderful event for families, for friends, a coworker, team building experience, whatever. They
I've never seen my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
TenutaWinery.com is the website. Go check it out. There are open days, weekend days in October, but you have to sign up really quickly. The good news is you get a discount for being a Mark Thompson Show listener. Yeah, you do. 10% off across the board. All you have to do is call or email and say or type.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Yeah, that's
Thank you. Smash it with your iron rod. 925-699-4576 is the number. Rich@TenutaVineyard.com is the email address. So check it out at TenutaWinery.com. Pick your date and then book your tickets because it's a really fun event.
Do
Not to
people
mention
wash
all the
their
wine.
feet first? Please say yes, asks JT.
Yeah,
People,
absolutely.
of course, they wash their feet first. But let me tell you something about that. I believe the process is such that even if you didn't wash your feet first, there's so much filtering and there are no germs that would hurt you. I mean, but in other words, by the end of the process, no germs survive. I mean, it's just
by the
not
time that the grapes are fermented and you've got alcohol, that's, I mean, you know.
Fermented is exactly the word I want.
Anything creepy is gone. Yeah.
Yes. It's a bit of fun, and then I have bottles and bottles of Tenuta Vineyard wine. I love the stuff, as you know. The Why Are You Yelling Red is terrific, and of course I recommend it. It's our own proprietary blend.
Why are you yelling?
By the way, you can order a case of that, and they'll give you 10%. They might give you 20% off if you.
They might give you 20% off. As a matter of fact, exciting news: Tenuta Vineyards has just re-upped for the month of October to sponsor our Fridays as well.
I love it. Friday sponsored by Tenuta.
Yeah. So they are a good supporter of the Mark Thompson Show, and we support them, local business here in the Bay Area, making some great wine.
And if you can't actually be there to stomp the grape, a lot of people, their grape stomping days are behind them, Kim. I mean, it does happen. You outgrow, or somehow you just don't have the stompiness in you anymore to be able to show up for a stomp fest.
Yeah.
We understand. That's why we make these great wines at Tenuta Vineyard. And that's why you should pick up the Why Are You Yelling Red, or even the Which One of You is Mark Thompson?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Yeah, the Which One of You is Mark Thompson Pinot Grigio that Albert is showing you right now. So you must participate at least by luxuriating in the Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson Pinot?
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Grigio or the Why Are You Yelling?
Why are you yelling?
Red.
My favorite. Yeah, good stuff.
I do love that. So anyway, thanks to Tenuta for making Fridays happen. Yeah. Even, this is interesting, Angel in the Bay Area with a super chat. Thank you. What the heck? 46,600 subscribers. Thought all we needed was 11,780.
What?
Yeah, that is all we needed. Just 11,780. But we exceeded it. And it was thanks to you sharing the show. That's how we grow the show. You sharing it.
Yeah.
And the trick era says this, Kim, and I turn to you as sort of the expert. By law, feet-stomped grapes are not consumed anymore.
I did not know this, and I don't know that that's true.
Yes, nor do I. And I love that we are representing a fact that we don't know whether it's true or not. Yeah, that's very consistent with the show.
To get Rich from Tenuta on the show to answer the question.
If you're talking about public policy, if you're talking about politics, if you're talking about international relations, you can Google the stuff I tell you and take it to the bank. It's true.
Google it.
Yeah, but if you're talking about feet in wine, we're kind of just sort of hoping what we say is true. But apparently the trick era says the stomp grapes are not consumed. But we need to check that with Rich and Nancy, don't you think?
Yeah, I think we should have them on the show.
Next time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to have them on the show. Let's do that for next Friday.
Yeah.
Anyway, laparoscopic surgery. The question was, what is it? Albert gave us a kind of we were a little pressed for time, and he gave us a kind of shorthand. Nutritionist Liz says in a super chat, and thank you for that, laparoscopic surgery, small incisions through which arms, as they're called, are placed. Video guides the surgery. The second time that was a wrong organ for that MD. In other words, the one we mentioned to you in Friday Fabulous Florida, that was his second outing with the wrong organ being involved. In this case, he took out a liver instead of the spleen.
Dr. Emil Schöpfhausen.
I don't know. It was not Dr. Emil Schöpfhausen, but thank you for that. And a Fiverr Friday for all the cool cats that made this show possible from Harry Magnan. Thank you, Harry. Thank you so much.
I regret that your first impression of me is one of anger, hate, and resentment.
Oh, yes, that's right. Harry, as always, never had that view of me.
Thank you so much.
Give him a thank you. All right. Tardy to the show, I was picking up Oasis tickets. Here's hoping the Gallagher brothers don't kill each other before my Rose Bowl show. 9/7/2025, says Luis. Yeah, that's a ways to wait, isn't it? I think everything will be okay. Tom is saying, give that medical guy who took out the liver instead of the spleen one more chance. Yeah, right. He killed somebody, Tom, so we can't really give him one more. Yeah, as it is, he's still a free man, but he's had his license revoked, as you are well aware. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
It's hard to believe that through it all, that there would be a time that we must say goodbye, but alas, that time has arrived. Watch this weekend. We may drop a special video for you. And thank you for all the ways that you support the show. I truly do appreciate it. Those people who share the show on your social media, on your Facebook, that really helps us. If you're on Facebook, that's where a lot of boys and girls are. That's helpful. If you're on TikTok, you crazy kids on TikTok, we want to actually get our show with more of a footprint on TikTok, so that may be coming as well. So we're trying to evolve the show to make its presence in different places felt, and you sharing the show really does help us. So Kim is doing the after party next. What is you have a special guest or anything, Kim, or not?
I do. I have Tim Sika on the show today. We'll have some more movie reviews.
Stevens
I know.
For the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
Check out Kim. Everyone have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday. Till then, bye-bye.